Lowe's knows you'll do spring right by saving on what you need to get your lawn and garden in shape. We do it right too, with deals to help you save every day, like 4 bags of premium mulch now for just $10. And buy 1.5 cubic foot bag of Miracle Grow vegetable and herb garden soil. Get a Bonnie Basics plant for free. Whatever's on your spring to-do list, do it right for less. Start with Lowe's. Offers valid through 5/1 while supplies last. Bonnie offer valid on select 11.8 ounce pots. Valid in-store only. See store for details. U.S. only. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
Good evening, everybody. This is Mark Radulich, known as the patriarch of the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, and this is a very special Damn You Hollywood. Tonight we are reviewing Avengers Endgame, and if you're wondering, well, what happened to the music? What happened to Robert Winfree? Well, you're not getting any music tonight, but Robert Winfree is here. We'll get to him in just a moment. We're doing roundtable format tonight, something a little bit different. We have a few guests with us. The movie itself is just enormous, and there's a lot to talk about, so I don't want to waste a tremendous amount of time with our usual shtick. God willing, you won't hear Robert and I try to strangle each other as usual with Damn You Hollywood, so we'll see what happens, though. You never can tell. Joining us tonight on the panel, as I mentioned before, is the co-host of Damn You Hollywood, Mr. Robert Winfree. How you doing tonight, sir?
Yeah.
Terrific.
You know, it's raining. I'm going to have to put new tires on my car. It's one of those days.
Good. I was hoping you'd be up for this. From Honeysuckle Rose Creations, ladies and gentlemen, it's the one and only Alexis Hejna. How you do, madam?
You know what? It's raining over here, too, but as I just sent you guys the picture, there is a beautiful rainbow that I can see from the window of my backyard, so I'm going to look on the positive.
All I can see from my back window is a lot more rain and gray sky.
Hey, let's see if we can keep this going. What's going on in your neck of the woods, Chris Armstrong from the Unspoken decade?
It's pretty nice here, so I'm not going to complain.
Oh, thank God. And ladies and gentlemen, saving me from all this nuttiness and negativity is the one and only host of the Source Material Podcast, and a pretty cool fruit who really knows where his towel's at, Mr. Jesse Starcher. How do you do, sir?
It's raining, man.
There we go.
Hallelujah.
It gonna rain.
Is that what I do to your podcast? God, I'm an asshole. All right.
Yes. Yes to both of those statements.
All right. Avengers Endgame came out last Thursday. It had debuted earlier the week in China and the rest of the world. It's broken like 1 million records. It's the highest debuting movie like in the history of film. I think that's even adjusted for inflation. I'm not sure technically where it compares to Gone with the Wind. I haven't checked yet, but I'm sure it's up there. It's on track to beat Avatar as the highest total grossing movie worldwide. Avatar has held that title for a long time now, and it was the Bruno Sammartino of films.
No. Bruno was actually entertaining.
Jesus, please don't.
Suck it, James Cameron.
This was one of Triple.
Boring.
Any one of Triple H's interminable title reigns was
fucking
was that
wonderful.
I also like Avatar.
Avatar was the reign of terror of movies. This is set to be the Hulk Hogan of movies. It had a budget of almost $400 million. It's already made. It's the first movie I think in history to crack $1 billion in one weekend. It obviously won its own weekend. Then again, nothing was dumb enough to be released alongside of it. Probably going to win this weekend, too. And that's really all there is to say about the money. Congratulations to Marvel and all hail the mouse for producing the movie that's going to define the blockbuster picture probably for the next decade. With that being said, I'm going to quick go around the horn here. I just want expectations coming out of 50 words, expectations coming out of Infinity War before we get into the plot of this thing, and then we're going to good, bad, and ugly this all the way around. So we'll start with you, Chris. You're new to this podcast. What were your you went to the movies last year. You saw Infinity War along with the rest of us. You left the movie. Thanos snapped everybody. what did you think was going to happen next? What were your expectations for Endgame?
Right. Yeah. I left Endgame kind of floored. I thought it was the best Marvel movie they had done up to that point. For a long time, Avengers was my favorite. Even though there have been, Winter Soldier, there have been some other really good ones. And Infinity War kind of overtook that. So I was kind of floored, and I didn't know what to expect with what would become Endgame. Immediately, I was seeing set photos of the Battle of New York and Ant-Man, being there. So time travel was obviously going to be part of it. So then I kind of had to avoid any kind of potential spoilers for basically a year. But I had no idea how they were going to resolve it. I wasn't really expecting the 5-year time jump. That was a big surprise. But as far as expectations, I was just expecting it to be, a pretty epic conclusion to Phase 3.
Alexis, we talked a little bit about this on Robert's excellent and very well received run-up to Countdown to Endgame, I believe is what we called it. I had made an assumption and, made an ass out of myself, as it were, because I certainly didn't think anyone thought, that the next movie would deal with it, and you had some different expectations and some different thoughts. So why don't you go ahead and talk about that?
Sure, and for the record, if I repeat myself from anything from Countdown to Endgame from Robert's previous show, I do apologize in advance. Because I legit do not remember everything I said in that show.
Clearly, neither do I. Go ahead.
Well, that was a long. That show ran way too long.
Look, the podcast runs about as long as Endgame. It was about 3 hours.
and then I had a meltdown that apparently caused other people to have meltdowns at the end of it, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it doesn't help that I was working at Comic-Con that weekend, and I was talking to you guys after I'd been working at a table all day. So that whole day is kind of a blur. But one of the things that really stuck with me was that there were so many people talking about all these theories of what they thought Endgame was going to be. I mean, I remember talking to people who were like, well, what's the point of the ending? We all know they're going to get unsnapped. And yeah, we knew that characters like Doctor Strange and Black Panther and Spider-Man were coming back, not only because they had future movies confirmed by Marvel, but we know that Marvel's not going to shoot their golden goose. And I get that. But I still really love that all the theories people came up with, everyone said, oh, Captain Marvel's just going to go up there and punch him, and then they'll get the stones, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. And they didn't give us that. They tried to give us that in the beginning. But I love that they kept keeping us on our toes about what was going to happen. This is a sign of very good writing that, in the end, yeah, we knew that we knew that time travel was going to be a thing. We knew that they were going to, fix everything, but we didn't know how it was going to happen. And I really loved how every time you thought you knew what was about to happen in that movie, they pulled the rug out from under you and you fell on your ass. I loved it. It really kept you guessing. There were so many parts where it was like, oh yeah, I've been so consumed by this part of the movie, I forgot that this was happening. And I love that. It really gets you into it. And that's not something you could say about a lot of films nowadays.
Very good. Jesse, you're watching Infinity War. It ends. Everyone's dusted. You walk into the parking lot and you think what?
Oh, is my daughter going to be okay? She is clearly shaken. She has hopped onto Instagram to check on poor old, oh my goodness, what's his name? Help me out. I almost said Tobey Maguire. Can you believe that?
Tom Holland.
Wrong Spider-Man.
Wrong
Tom Holland.
Thank you very much. So yeah, we come out of that, and it was a movie that really, it'd been a long time since I'd been to the theater and felt that much emotion. And to be left with so many questions as to what they're going to do, I had, I didn't know where they were going to go. You really didn't get the whole quantum realm thing until Ant-Man and Wasp showed up shortly after that, right? I mean, that was, when did that show up timeline-wise? It was after Infinity War.
Well, no, the events of that movie are concurrent with the epilogue of that movie is concurrent with Infinity War. In the timeline of picture release, it happened in July.
Okay, so it was after.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, but yeah, I didn't know. I was used to what I'd read in the comics, and I didn't think they were going to follow the comics word for word, and time travel wasn't in that, so I didn't know what to expect. But of course, you're expecting them all to come back. You just didn't know how in the hell they were going to top what just happened in front of you, and I'll be damned, they sure as shit did. So there you go.
All right, Robert, you're sitting in the theater. You've got your popcorn in one hand, your foam finger that says Thanos #1 in the other. You're standing up. You're cheering for Thanos. You're like, kill all the humans, and he does it. And then both you and him are sitting together in the garden. And what are we thinking?
That they should have just ended it. There's no need for a second part. Let's just let it end on that note. Sorry, not my serious response. But if I'm gonna play up the gimmick, I'll play up the gimmick for a minute or two. I expected everyone to come back. Everyone came back. I expected anyone that died in this movie was actually gonna stay dead, and that seems to be the case. What are the expectations for this? I went into this really devoid of a lot of expectations, I think, in many respects, which I don't know if it helped or hurt my experience watching the movie, to be quite honest, but I really did enjoy Infinity War. It's probably still my favorite. I probably still would give Infinity War as a movie a slight edge over Endgame, but I expected to have I expected everyone to come back because, hey, they literally just dusted everyone that we knew was already coming back. So good on you. I expected a few people to die. Frankly, I expected more death than there was, but that was my own fault. That was me just irrationally hoping. And I expected a very fan-pleasing finale to everything that had come before, and I think largely that's what we got.
So, just really quickly for myself, I walked out of Infinity War depressed. That's a depressing movie. I mean, it was satisfying. It was enjoyable. It was entertaining. Well acted, well crafted. For further issues on whatever was wrong with the craft, you can check out our review from last year with Alexis, Hejna, and David Wright, who could not make it tonight. But I think I ruminated on the ending for a while, and like everybody else who said it, I was like, well, I already knew which pictures have been greenlit at this point. Some of them were already in pre-production, so I was like, my brain told me how this was going to go, but my heart was like, oh, I'm still upset. Here's the problem, and this is what I want to talk about really quickly, get your responses, and then we'll get to good, bad, and ugly. Between the set photos and then the trailers, it kind of spelled out what the movie was gonna be, at least for me. They show the trailers, they show everyone in rocket ship. They had released footage of them having a tete-a-tete with Captain Marvel. You didn't have me, that sort of thing. Hey, we're all about that superhero life. Good for you, Don Cheadle. So there was those scenes. There was scenes of them fighting in what looked like hell in the trailer. The set photos were of the Battle of New York, revisiting the Battle of New York, and Paul Rudd's in those photos. So there was an indication that there was going to be some degree of time travel. There were a lot of articles written about it that I read, and a lot of videos that that pretty much confirmed that they were going to be revisiting parts of the Marvel Cinematic Universe over the previous 20-odd films. And so my expectation was that all of that would be true. I went into it kind of having a rough idea. Like, okay, I kind of know how this movie goes. I know they're going to take an early trip to kill Thanos. It's not going to go well. Wasn't quite sure if he was going to dust Captain Marvel and then take off
God,
again.
that would have been great. That would have been so great.
I heard a rumor that like Thor and Captain Marvel like whittle him down, and then in a last-ditch attempt, he dusts Captain Marvel and just yoinks out of the garden. So I was like, okay, does that happen? You know, that sort of thing. I had heard rumors that they take the stones from different parts of time. I've heard other things that they copy them. So they were like details that I wasn't sure of, but I knew the basic structure. And if this thing didn't end in a giant schmoz, I would have been surprised. And that's exactly what we got. So the movie mostly fulfilled my expectations. Let me say this, in terms of strict film craft, this movie isn't as good as Endgame. It's not as tightly wound or well executed, in my opinion.
You mean not as good as Infinity War?
Sorry, yeah, Infinity War. Thank you. Not as tightly wound or well executed as Infinity War. But that doesn't mean it wasn't an enjoyable experience. As if anyone has listened to the show before knows, there's lots of garbage I like. So just because something is entertaining doesn't necessarily mean it was well done. Two different things.
I wanted to say, I mean, we are trained to kind of look at this as two movies because it's been that long in between since we've seen Infinity War. But I wonder if you took the whole thing as one movie, if your opinion would change.
No, because the tones are different.
Okay.
The first of all, I'm going to throw this out there. I'll let you guys respond to it. Infinity War is the Thanos movie. This is about him. This is about, this is essentially a kind of one of Marvel's standalone superhero movies, only in a weird twist of cinematic structure, it focused on the bad guy instead of the hero. And in a real weird, tragic way, well, not in weird. That absolutely happens. The bad guy wins.
Yeah.
So essentially this is Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, but the reverse. It's about the bad guy, and the bad guy wins. In Endgame is the resolution and the revisiting of 20-odd movies. It's a whole other beast, in my opinion. Chris, what do you think? Am I crazy?
No, I think you're right on. Infinity War is Thanos' movie. He's the hero, and the hero wins in that movie. And then that movie ends. And the beginning of Endgame, we see like the immediate aftermath, kind of like the prologue to Infinity War, and then Endgame really gets started at the 5 years later mark.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree. I think one of the reasons I still think Infinity War, or one of the reasons I prefer Infinity War still, and it's still my favorite Marvel movie, is because it's Thanos' movie. And Thanos is my guy. I think Josh Brolin is great as Thanos. We get a lot more of him, obviously, in Infinity War. And aside from that, I have a lot fewer complaints about Infinity War than Endgame. But yeah, absolutely, I think that they're I had some friends when we watched Infinity War, like, I'm not sure what I think about it yet because I feel like I've only seen half of it. And I'm like, I don't think that's the case. I think that's Thanos' movie, and Endgame is going to be another Avengers movie.
Yeah, I think the perspective is whatever perspective you're taking. If you're taking the perspective of this is Thanos' story, it has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end, and the end is extremely satisfying and complete. If you're taking this is the Avengers story with Thanos as an obstacle, I guess I see where Jesse's coming from, but to me, I'm not feeling it that way. Alexis, any thoughts here? You want to jump in with any ideas?
Well, I will say that I haven't decided yet.
Alexa, stop!
Oh my goodness! Intestinal gas.
What did you think you asked?
I don't know. Let's move on. I'm pretty sure I've agitated Skynet, and we'll get to it later.
Mark has a shipment of Dulcolax show up there tomorrow. It'll be nice.
For the record, this is not the first time, either on this show or in my own personal life, that I've been upstaged by Amazon Echo. Multiple members of my family have it, and whenever we get together for the holidays, it's a rule it has to be turned off, otherwise things get really, really weird.
You have the floor, madam.
Okay, so I was about to say before, Siri so rudely interrupted me. I haven't decided yet how I feel about Infinity War versus Endgame. I've watched Infinity War so many times, both on Netflix and I've got it on Blu-ray. I've only seen Endgame once. Now, I actually am going to go see it again tomorrow night, because when I saw it alone, and my husband hasn't seen it yet. And I've been very careful not to mention any spoilers or anything around him, because as we have seen in the news, spoilers equals kiss of death.
Somebody's getting punched.
Multiple people got punched. Multiple people. The one guy from ESPN who tweeted out the ending. There's now a petition calling for his resignation.
Oh, wow!
We live
about that today.
We live in a terrible world.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to admit, I actually had someone yell at me because I accidentally revealed a spoiler. I was on Facebook. I didn't post this in my status message. I was commenting on another person's wall. And I mentioned, it was something about, it's like, wow, seeing him wield Mjolnir again was so cool. And you know how on Facebook sometimes it does the whole so-and-so commented on this. And it showed that to a friend of mine who hadn't seen the movie, and he messaged me, and he was raging. He was so mad.
You told him to shove it, right? Because he needs to stay off social media if he wants to avoid spoilers. That's just the way it has to be.
Normally, yes, but I've seen this guy throw hissy fits about Walking Dead spoilers, and I knew that nothing I said was going to calm him down. So
okay, well
I
then.
apologized and deleted the comment.
All right.
Whatever. Some fights you're going to win. Some fights it's better just to say, you know what, I'll acquiesce and walk away.
You're the better person. I'll give you that.
Thank you. But, wow, I forgot where I was going with this. I got on a rant there. I do agree that the first movie was Thanos' film. I think one of the things I liked so much about this is we see the evolution of Thanos' character. When we reviewed Infinity War, I remember talking about how Thanos was a different villain because he was not after this for power or for glory or for money. He genuinely felt he was doing the right thing. The idea that the snap was impartial, rich, poor, old, young. But then in this one, he comes forward and he's basically, we discover it's not just that he thinks he's doing the right thing. He wants the world to be grateful for what he's done. He's the parent who said, I cleaned your room. Now you better give me like a bouquet of roses for cleaning your room. I don't know why. It just kind of reminded me of the times my parents got mad at me because they cleaned my room and I didn't say anything.
Okay.
I don't know what happened to Thanos in the few years between Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and Infinity War, but whatever happened to him in those few years actually made him an interesting character with better visuals associated with him. Because yeesh.
All right, let's turn the page here unless somebody has a burning desire about the preceding topics. A little bit of prologue. So Tony's Avengers on Titan are summarily defeated. Tony is nearly killed by Thanos, and in order to spare his life, Doctor Strange gives Thanos the Time Stone. And when Robert Downey Jr. goes, Doctor Strange says it was the only way. Now we're in the end game. Closed chapter. He yoinks on off to Wakanda. Thanos does. He makes a beeline for the Vision. Scarlet Witch done blows up the Mind Stone, and he says, "That's a good trick, but I got a better one." Uses the Time Stone to focus exclusively on Vision. The Mind Stone reforms. He puts it in the gauntlet. Thor goes for the chest and not the head, and Thanos mocks him, and then the snapping happens. As people are being dusted, Nick Fury, feeling like seeing the world around him starting to end. It is the end of all things. Helicopters are falling out of the air. Cars are crashing. Dogs and cats are living together. Thank you. He pulls out his handy-dandy pager, and we see the colors for Captain Marvel. Fast forward, the Avengers pick up the pager. They're looking at it in Avengers headquarters. It stops beeping, essentially. It stops sending out a signal. They look behind them, and there's a pissed-off Brie Larson saying, "How come there aren't more? How come there aren't more racially diverse superheroes?" And then that ends.
Wait, spoiler.
Yeah, all right. So,
for the record, I was going to say, for the record, was anyone a little upset that the scene from Captain Marvel is not what we got?
Well, that's why I brought it up. That's why I brought it up, because people are like, "How did she know where to find Tony? Like, why? The fact that they didn't put it in the movie and they just assumed you saw Captain Marvel. It did make over $1 billion, and what are we, not Marvel fans?" So they figured you'll all make the connection, but God is my witness, there are people out there like don't connect that scene to the movie at all for some odd reason. So it's part of why I'm going through this. So unless somebody wants to jump in here, so she meets the Avengers there. There's an intervening 3 weeks where Tony and Nebula get back on Rocket's ship. They explain one of the batteries they stole, as a matter of fact, from in Guardians 2 from Aisha and the Sovereign, I think it's what they're called, is broke, so they don't have enough fuel to get back to Earth, and they're in a situation where they're desperately running out of air and food. At which point, Captain Marvel finds them out in space, somewhere between Saturn and the Earth, and she takes them home. This is about 3 weeks after the snap. At the same time the snap is happening, Hawkeye's having a family picnic. He turns around, his family is dusted, and we'll get back to him later. So Tony gets off the ship. He reunites with Pepper. He reunites with the rest of the Avengers. He tells Steve Rogers, "Hey, remember when we said we were all going to fight together and we'll lose together too? Well, none of that happened, you asshole." And off he goes. The remaining Avengers and Captain Marvel decide they've got enough manpower to go kick the shit out of Thanos. Thanos uses the stones, letting the universe know where he might be if you're tracking this sort of thing. So into Rocket ship we go again, and off to the garden. They get there. They do a Pearl Harbor job on the guy. Everyone's got an arm and a leg and a head and a foot and a shoe and a penis and everything, and they're just holding him down.
Rocket, you get the penis.
They're all over.
Rocket's not big enough to hold Thanos.
Oh, no!
Everyone's got themselves a piece. And as it turns out, and they chop off his hand, and as it turns out, the stones are gone, and he says, "Yep, too much temptation. I used the stones to destroy the stones. How do you like me now?" And Thor chops off his head. And that's the end of that.
Did anyone else know exactly what he was going to say? I think I actually said it along with him.
I went for the head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way,
that was the obvious gag.
Is it weird that one of my favorite parts of this movie is watching Thanos make soup?
Yes, but okay.
I'm watching him, so it was like watching MasterChef. I was like,
yeah, I knew it.
Look at him.
Reference. It was happening.
He's like, oh, he really takes great care to make such nice soup. And then he gets his head cut off.
Gordon Ramsay's not giving commentary in live time. It's not MasterChef.
Fair enough. All right, moving on. 5 years later, Steve Rogers is doing a survivors group. Black Widow is kind of running the Avengers / Shield superheroes, trying to keep things together. Rocket's out in space doing a thing. Captain Marvel's out in space doing a thing. Okoye's trying to keep the lid on Wakanda, and Don Cheadle is handling everything else apparently. At which point, A rat happens to walk across the mechanism that launches Scott Lang out of the quantum zone, and he went, "Holy shit, what happened?" And
the Russos have tweeted actually that rat is the true hero of the movie.
I don't doubt it.
Well, I mean, he is, because without that rat, literally nothing else happens.
Yeah,
that is the event that is the key event that allows everything that follows it to actually occur. Without that rat, nothing.
Yep.
You're all just stuck living with it. All hail the Rat King.
In an alternate universe where the rat falls in a rat trap, nothing changes.
I need a comic backstory, 5-issue arc next year, Mark. That's what we need to tell Marvel to do.
Yep. Tales of the Rat.
Tales of the How did we get there?
All right, so a rat walks across the mechanism and outshoots Scott Lang out of the quantum zone, where it's only been a few hours for him, but for the rest of life it's been 5 years. He wanders around San Francisco like a homeless person and realizes, holy shit, what did I miss? He makes his way to Avengers headquarters and he says, "Hey, have you ever seen Back to the Future? We're going to rip off that plot. What do you think?" And they all go, "That seems fair." So, they go to Tony. Tony is living on a lake with Pepper, whom he's married, and he's got a 4 or 5-year-old kid named Morgan. And Tony says, "Get bent. I've got my happy ending. You guys figure it out. I'm not risking any of this. Besides the fact time travel is a bunch of horse shit. It's science fiction hooey." And they fuck off. Except that he's Tony. He's always trying to solve the equation. He's always trying to build things. He's always trying to fix things. For more of that, see Rob's podcast. And so he invents time travel, like you do. Meanwhile, Steve and Scott and Black Widow go find the only other scientist apparently that they know, and it's Professor Hulk, who can wear shirts now. Hooray!
Mark is not bitter.
Not at all.
That scene still freaks me. I mentioned this on Rob's podcast that I've seen Professor Hulk in the comics, and I've never really heard his voice, but I always pictured he had a very gruff voice, maybe just like a tiny octave higher than the Hulk, but somewhere around the same thing. Hearing Mark Ruffalo's voice come out of that, I was like, that? I think I rather loudly said, "The fuck?"
Yeah, and it's Mark Ruffalo doing his "I'm from Brooklyn" voice. Go ahead, Chris. Yeah, or whoever was about to say something.
Wasn't me.
I think all I was going to say was this is clearly the best work that Mike Myers has done ever.
Waka.
I will say the Hulk voice, Smart Hulk, I thought was one of the better, or at least one of the more fun characters in the movie. I cracked up at the diner scene quite a bit, and when he looks at Captain America and Scarlet Witch and goes, "Time travel." Like, he had a really good delivery.
You mean Black Widow?
Yeah, my bad. Sorry.
I hate to say, I've been making that mistake constantly because it's really hard when the actress is Scarlett Johansson. It is a really easy mistake to repeatedly make.
That's okay. We all keep confusing Infinity War and Endgame, by the way, so this is good.
But having his voice be a little gruffer, I think, would have cut into some of the humor a little bit.
All right, I'm not going to scream and yell about the Hulk right this second. I did a bit of that on Rob's podcast. But, so Ruffalo Hulk shows up and says, this isn't my specialty for the last fucking time, because that seems to be a thing with him. But they're going to try it anyway. And they fail at it, and there's a funny scene of them experimenting and failing with Scott. Tony shows up, and as he does with everything, he saves the day. He gives Cap back his shield. They kiss and make up. It's all good. They finish building their time machine. They get Thor back, and Thor is in the midst of a beer-soaked depression. And he spends most of the rest of the movie doing his best imitation of the Big Lebowski. So that's Thor.
All those ladies that showed up to check out Hemsworth.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I already cried over the loss of my Hemsworth abs.
If you came for abs, boy, were you sorry. All right, so the team is back together, including Nebula and Rocket, and they split up into groups, and this is where the time heist happens, and you can hear the Ocean's 11 music playing.
Not the good Ocean's 11 either.
Not the good one.
Cap, Hulk, Iron Man, and Ant-Man go to the Battle of New York, and then they subdivide. Cap goes after the Mind Stone, which is Loki's scepter. Iron Man and Scott go after the Tesseract, and Hulk goes down to Greenwich Village and goes to see the Ancient One to get the Time Stone, this is where they set up the rules of time travel in this movie, which are, you don't change your timeline, you only create other timelines. And you have to put these, and she's willing to give away the Time Stone only after he tells her, Doctor Strange already beat you to it, that's the whole reason we're here. And she says, all right, well, I guess if he knew what he was doing, I will go ahead and cooperate, but you got to bring them all back. All right, so that's time travel in this movie. Captain America gets the scepter. There's a really funny callback to Winter Soldier. He fights himself, and we all recognize that Chris Evans' ass is America's ass. That's terrific.
He does have a great ass.
He does have a great ass. Tony and Ant-Man fail to get the Tesseract when they make Hulk walk the stairs, and in doing so, crosses paths with the Tony who's trying to yoink with the Tesseract, knocks him down. The Tesseract gets knocked to the floor, and a captured Loki yoinks the Tesseract, and off he goes to a Disney Plus series. So that's Loki. Yay, he's back to life.
No, we're just going to follow a different Loki, not the same Loki.
Ant-Man and the Hulk go back to Avengers headquarters. Tony and Steve figure out that the Tesseract, if they go back further in time, they can not only get the Tesseract, but they can also get Pym particles so that they can return home. All right, so they fuck off to Camp Lehigh in the 70s, where Tony meets his father, and they have without realizing it, has a bit of a making up with his father, a resolution with his father. Cap, on the other hand, sees Peggy, and he's reminded, oh yeah, you're the love of my life. More on that later.
Oh, no.
I'm not going to cry.
Push through, Mark. Push through.
You're not getting through that synopsis, Mark. You know it.
Cap gets the Tesseract. Iron Man gets the Tesseract. He gets the Pym particles. They fuck off back to Avengers headquarters. Mission accomplished. The rest of the team go to 2014 in space. War Machine and Nebula go to Morag, where they see a dancing Peter Quill and punch him dead in the face.
He's an idiot.
Quill was the worst character in Infinity War. Like, there. Hope you're happy now.
Yes, cosmic karma for causing them to lose to Thanos. In any case, so he's dead on the ground. Nebula grabs the Power Stone. Hot potatoes it to War Machine. He fucks off back to the Avengers headquarters. She can't, because now, for some odd reason, her Bluetooth headset and the 2014 Nebula's Bluetooth headset are now sharing memories, which is what brings Thanos back. 2014 Thanos is now able to see that he succeeds in completing the snap and getting all of the Infinity Stones, and they hatch a plan for her to go back to the future and bring him there so that he can get the gauntlet from the heroes and he can snap again. That's their plan. Meanwhile, Black Widow and Hawkeye go to Vormir with no plan. They're just there. They'll figure it out when they get there. The Red Skull does the same sales routine where he says, one of you guys is going to have to make a sacrifice. They fight over who it's going to be. Hawkeye says, I've been a piece of shit these last 5 years. I should do it. And she says, yeah, but you have a family and it's only been 5 years. I've been a piece of shit most of my life. Off I go. And down she goes. So Hawkeye gets the Soul Stone. For time, I'm blasting through this for those listening going like, wow, he's like, he's really blowing through this. Rocket and Thor go to whatever year Thor the Dark World was. They go to Asgard. While they're there, Thor is able to reconcile with his mother and basically admit, I'm a huge failure for all my godly powers. And she, gives him a mom talk. He gets his head back together. He gets Mjolnir back, and Rocket extracts the ether from Natalie Portman, who I'm sure got a lot of money for 2 minutes of screen time, if that. Then they fuck off back to Avengers headquarters.
Stop the rabbit!
I think that's everybody. They all reconvene, including Evil 2014 Nebula, back at Avengers headquarters, sans Black Widow. Tony creates a gauntlet that can hold the stones. The Hulk realizes it's all led to this moment. I'm mostly gamma radiation. They're mostly gamma radiation. It's a match made in heaven. It's peanut butter and jelly. So he puts the gauntlet on. He unsnaps everybody, theoretically. They don't realize this until birds start chirping and Hawkeye's wife calls him. But they can't celebrate because at that point, Thanos and his vast army have showed up, and they shoot Avengers headquarters to fucking hell. Just blast it to smithereens. Most of the team is trapped under it. Hawkeye's running from Outriders. It's a hot mess. But the first people out of the hole are Thor, who's double-wielding Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. Captain America and Iron Man, and they do a 3-on-1 against Thanos. It ends badly. There are some great moments, Cap wielding Mjolnir and Thor going, yes, I knew you were such and such. But everyone gets their ass kicked. Cap's shield gets broken in half. And when things are at their darkest, he's able to open the Matrix of Leadership, and portals open.
That hurt me physically, Mark. How dare you?
The touch plays. It's a fan. Sandbush. Portals start to open, and in walks everybody. If you were in a Marvel movie, you walked into this scene, and so you have Thanos' army on one side, you have Cap's Avengers on the other side. He says Avengers assemble, and everyone proceeded to stain their pants. They flip a coin. Cap's team starts with the ball, and they proceed to schmaz. At one point, Hawkeye shows up on the field with the gauntlet, and the battle sort of focuses on that. There are a lot of moments. I'm letting everyone else talk about their favorite moments or their least favorite moments when they get to it. I'm not going to worry about it for the plot synopsis at this point. The battle really focuses on getting control of the gauntlet. Hawkeye kicks it off. They hot potato it to Spider-Man and to Black Panther and eventually to Captain Marvel. All the women's showed up and did an A-Force moment. It comes down to Captain Marvel and Thanos proceeded to toxic masculinity her out of the picture with the Power Stone.
Oh, that was so great.
Just pops her right in the face with the Power Stone. He goes to snap. Iron Man has yoinked all the stones. Thanos says, I am inevitable, and Tony Stark says, I am Iron Man, and poof, all the bad guys are dusted. Which leads us to our Lord of the Rings conclusion. Iron Man dies. There's a funeral. You get to one last bow from all of our various characters from all of the various movies, including Captain Marvel and Nick Fury, the kid from Iron Man 3. They're all there. There's a great moment with Happy and Morgan, talking about all the cheeseburgers you could eat. And that's done. You get to see various shots of everyone returning to their own movies. That's done. Wakanda, Spider-Man, etc., etc. And then we have our final bit where Hulk, whose arm is in a sling from the gauntlet, Bucky and Falcon and Captain America are gathered together at a rebuilt time machine, and Cap's got to go return the Time Stones and Thor's hammer back to where they took them from, and he doesn't return. Not the way that he's supposed to. Hulk was supposed to bring him back. He don't come back. However, Bucky says, hey, Sam, stop crying. Go over there. And there's an old man sitting on Golden Pond. And he walks over, and oh, look, it's 100-year-old Steve Rogers, who had a nice life. And a final dance with Peggy Carter. Roll credits. Everyone cries. We're all mulling to the street. Voila, lobster. All right. I've just spent the last 5 minutes yammering on, so I'm going to let everybody else talk. Chris, you're good. Be it things you liked, film craft. What's your good? In 50 words or less.
Yeah, I'm not much on film craft, so I'll just hit some of the highlights. Like I said, I was really I really like Smart Hulk. I know I listened to the pod you guys did with Robert and Alexis.
Now you know why you're wrong. Okay, good.
Yeah, well, I'm not convinced that I am. I do agree with you that
You're not. Mark's a pissy fanboy about the Hulk.
I do agree that this we were kind of robbed of seeing the Hulk, the character kind of evolve, and I don't care about that really because this isn't the Hulk's movie. This is a Marvel. It's pretty much the entire MCU. I think you've got a good point, but I liked Ruffalo as the Smart Hulk. I thought he was charming and funny. And I thought that the humor was a little laid on way too thick throughout the movie, to be honest. But the stuff
ain't whistling Dixie.
but I thought the stuff with Ruffalo's Hulk was really well done. I liked him.
For the record, it's not that I didn't like the Hulk. There's a lot of Hulk stuff I liked. I didn't like the missing piece of him coming to terms with the Hulk.
Yeah, and I can't fault you for that. I totally get what you're saying. The time jump, pushing it ahead 5 years, I thought that was pretty brilliant. Also, when I get to the bad, I'll refer to that again. But having it jump ahead 5 years, it's a whole new world for the Avengers to launch this campaign from. I don't think anybody's favorite moment is going to be anything other than when Thanos has Thor down on the ground and he gets nailed with Mjolnir, and it swings back and Cap is the one that threw it and he's holding it.
I've got to ask, were people cheering in your theater, Chris?
Well, not the first time I watched it.
No, that's because it was like you and like two other people. So
when I watched it with a crowd, though, yeah, I mean, it that's one of the good things about, like, I hate watching movies with big crowds if I've never seen it, but once I've seen it and know what's coming, and I know I'm not going to miss anything, I love watching these kind of big movies with crowds. So yeah, there was a lot of cheers and a lot of gasps and whatnot. And I think the best line delivery Chris Hemsworth has had in any movie might be the "I knew it" when he sees Cap holding the hammer. It's great. And then, of course, the big moment when all the Avengers show up at the end and we finally hear Cap use the battle cry for the first time on screen. So those are kind of the highlights of the movie to me.
Okay, very good. Alexis, you're good.
First of all, yeah, I didn't stand up and cheer when it was revealed with Cap with Mjolnir. I wanted to, but you could hear everyone in the audience, just this giant collective gasp, which was so much fun. That fight scene alone, I still don't know how any film, Marvel or not, is ever going to top it. Again, we brought this up. This is probably the greatest action fight scene since Return of the King.
I'll agree.
And I still just can't get over how amazing it is. Personally, I think one of my favorite moments was seeing Captain Marvel take on Thanos, because everyone kept saying that she was the only one who was strong enough to take on Thanos. And this was something I did want to see. And, I can hear everyone calling her a Mary Sue for a million years, whatever. But that moment... Sorry. Hang on a second. I'm being told that I need to move downstairs because my husband's within earshot and he doesn't want to hear spoilers.
Oh.
Sorry, honey.
Just for the record, she can be an enormous Mary Sue and still have great moments, which I think is the case for Captain Marvel.
Okay, yeah, and as I was about to say, that scene where she's wrestling it with him for the gauntlet, he headbutts her, and she doesn't even flinch. Oh
nothing.
my God, that scene was awesome. I loved it. And I love how he rips the Power Stone out and punches her with it. That was kind of ingenious. I mean, I don't think anybody really thinks about what you can do with the stones once they're in the gauntlet. You know, it's like, oh yeah, you could still use the stones individually like that. I thought that was a really clever idea.
Yeah, I particularly, I've heard so many negative reviews about Captain Marvel. I'm just sick of it. And when you guys are done, I want to spend a minute defending the character's use. But I did laugh my ass off during that. It was one of those rare moments in the movies where I kind of like smiled for the bad guy, because I was like, that's damn funny. It's like punches are literally out of frame. Anything as far as anything on the film craft? Anything as far as the way the movie was presented that you want to talk about?
Well, this is something again I mentioned on Rob's podcast. My dad called me the day after I saw the movie, and he and I were talking about it. He hasn't seen it yet. He and my mom probably aren't going to get to see it till Memorial Day. But I asked if he and my mother had seen all the movies, and he had seen all except for 2. And I filled him in on what he needed on 1, and the other one I said, "Oh, it's still on Netflix. Just go watch it." And I said, "I'm assuming it's the same with mom." And he goes, "No, your mother's only seen a few here and there." And I was just like, okay, I'm not speaking as a pretentious Marvel fan, even though I am kind of a pretentious Marvel fan. You cannot go to see Endgame without seeing these other movies. That's just how strong this linear storyline is. That's how amazingly well crafted they are. I mean, the fact that, yes, we have a scene that hints at Age of Ultron when Cap is wielding Mjolnir, and it calls back to that scene when they were all trying to lift him, and you see him move briefly, and you see Thor, the look on Thor's face like, oh shit. And I remember so many people saying, wait, did he actually move it? Did he move it briefly and then he's decided not to move it because he didn't want to upstage Thor or something? Yeah, there was so many
For the record, that's my take on it.
I think you're probably right.
Can I ask a real quick question, Chris? You know, we're both comic book guys. Mark, I know you've read your share of comic books. And anybody else want to jump in on this? But has Cap had control of the hammer at any time in the comic books?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's
okay. Go ahead.
I think it's only happened once, but I mean there are so many like alternate timelines and whatnot. But there was a famous issue, I think in the 80s or maybe the 70s, where he lifted it, and for a long time he was the only other person that had ever lifted the hammer besides Thor and I think Beta Ray Bill.
Okay. Well, yeah. I when I saw it happen on screen, I just remember sitting there going, I don't know if I've ever seen it in a comic, that's pretty epic. And you know, if it's a rare occasion, which it is, a rare instance, it struck chords. I mean, people were cheering in my theater. They were clapping, and it was the biggest moment for sure. But go ahead, Alexis. I interrupted you. Sorry.
Okay. Well, like I was saying, I just love how there were so many callbacks to previous films. The idea that they were working so hard to interweave all of these films together, it made it just feel so much more epic. You walk out of Endgame not feeling like you've seen a movie. You walk out feeling like you have been part of an experience. And it really does weigh on you that these are characters, these are films that you have watched for the last 10 years, and you really feel like you've been on this journey with them. I know that sounds stupid, but that's the way I genuinely felt.
No, I'm with you. I tried to explain. Now, granted, I was defending my belief that if you wear the band T-shirt to the concert of that band, you're a weenie. But if you wear the comic book T-shirt to the comic book movie, that's okay because that's an experience. And you know, and she didn't get it, and apparently nobody else that I explained that to does. But yeah, I definitely, T-shirts aside. I definitely made the argument that some of these, not all, are experiences, not just a movie. These are I'm going to go with the word cultural experience, and I know that culture sort of denotes a meaning of like high art, but I think anything can be culture. Motley Crue is part of the culture.
God help us.
So these are
Motley Lue's part of the culture.
These are cultural experiences. I absolutely agree with you. If you don't, unless there was anything else, I'm going to go ahead to Jesse. If that's okay.
I was going to say, I think there was one moment, actually, that is my absolute favorite, and that is hearing Falcon say, "On your left."
That was great.
Yes, yes.
I nearly dropped my popcorn. I was just like, oh, hell yes.
It was good
just
stuff.
ever so faintly, and when you pick it up, you're like, oh shit, here we go.
Yes.
Not to mention that I don't know how many of you remember that that's a callback to Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, Jesse, hit it, Johnny.
Oh, let me tell you. Okay, here is the absolute best thing for me in regards to this film, and it is the fact that it is the culmination of all of these films. It is our climax. It is the end game. All right, 22 films. Is that what you guys said? Is this 23 or is that 20? Is it 22 overall? Counting this one.
22 overall.
All right.
It'll be 23 once Spider-Man meets Jill, and I have a better. I have something I call him that I'm not going to repeat on air.
He's not excited.
because that is apparently the actual finale for the Infinity Saga.
It's the epilogue, as I've been told.
Got it. Well, okay, 13-year-old Jesse Starcher sitting at his house, and he gets a bit of a hard time from his stepfather because he likes the old comic books. Now I get to look at this world that we live in and see how far we've come. What used to be a hobby of mine that was looked down upon. I know I've said this on other podcasts, I think, on here, but everybody is watching these films. Everybody is experiencing this. And I remember watching that first Avengers film, and the tears came to my eyes, realizing that what I'm seeing on the screen in front of me is being experienced by millions across the United States. And it really did my heart good. And then, of course, I sit down at this theater with my son and my daughter to watch this movie. And again, it washes over me that we're coming to the end of this saga, and I have been able to experience this with my kids. My daughter became a huge Marvel movie fan, especially when I took her to go watch Infinity War. I just took her, and this year I decided to take Caleb. But she went back and she watched all of them. She watches all the YouTube videos explaining all the theories, and I'll tell you one thing, that does a parent's heart good. And to be able to sit there and watch this and experience it with them was, there's nothing better. There's nothing better. So there you go. That is the good for me, is just being able to watch this and know where I came from as a kid, and to experience it with my own kids and all these people who are now talking about it across the world.
All right, take me home, Daddy. That's you, Robert.
Ugh. All right. Since everyone else did a lot of the major, more narrative stuff, I think I'm going to focus for a second or two on some of the film craft. This movie has genuinely brilliant bits of writing contained within it. I love the opening bit where, again, within the first 5 minutes, we get them charging off to confront Thanos again, and he just winds up laughing at them. I love the way that that then leads into the time jump for 5 years in the future, because I appreciate a good subversion, and that completely subverts everything that we have come to expect about the structure of how these movies come together. I also loved, and this was going to be a big thing for a while, because if the stones still exist, we then move into some kind of Infinity Watch style of movie, and a lot of it becomes a lot of rehashing stuff that's already been done, and you need to be able to circumvent that. So from a writing perspective, for them just going, okay, these are the only things that can undo what Thanos did. He believes he's done ultimate good now. He's going to make sure it can't be undone. So he destroys the stones, and now they're not here anymore, so they can't be plot devices in future movies. We're not going to get rehashes of any of this in the movies going forward. I thought that was a really clever way to get around the problem of, hey, all-powerful rocks. I liked that, again, they came up with a way to get around that in the sense that, okay, well, time travel. I don't mind their version of time travel. I've said I'm of the opinion that there's basically 3, occasionally kind of 4 narrative ways of using time travel. And really all I ask for is that you are internally consistent. And they are in this one. And they use one that I kind of enjoy, which is the fixed future. And then they get rid of the stones that they have by returning them to the places in time when they removed them. Again, they've done just a really good job of kind of narratively and from a writing perspective ensuring we're not going to get a lot of rehashes. That was really clever and well done. I love all the callbacks because I think there's probably a callback to every individual Marvel movie in here somewhere. And they're really cool when you pick up on them, if you do. And I mean, missing them isn't the biggest thing in the world, but it is nice. It's just nice stuff that adds to the experience of seeing these films. Good. I did not expect Jeremy Renner to be the guy who broke my heart in this movie. I genuinely didn't expect that. I should have, because Jeremy Renner is probably the best actor of the bunch. Honorable mention to Josh Brolin, but just the way to signal a very specific scene. It's not even the scene where he loses his family. There's this really great scene right after the Hulk snap, when his wife calls him and he sees her on his cell phone, and there's just this quiver to his chin that's going on as he picks up the phone to talk with his wife, who's been dead for 5 years, and that he never thought he was ever going to see again. And again, I expected the Cap stuff to kind of pluck at my heartstrings. I expected Tony's stuff to pluck at my heartstrings, but Jeremy Renner coming out of left field a little bit. Left field's probably not the right expression, but coming up from the blind side and just like, oh hey, by the way. So that was really good. I liked the end for Scarlet Witch. It's a really great Scarlet Witch. Excuse me. Yeah, now I'm doing it. I like the end for Black Widow, because it is. If you look at her story and only her story, it is about as good a send off for that character as you were going to get. Someone who has spent the majority of her life trying to undo all these horrible things that she's done, finally is given the opportunity to do so with her best friend by her side and giving him back his family and saving him from the path of darkness that he's been on for the last 5 years. That's about as good as it's going to get for her. So I was fine with that. Again, Cap's ending is great. There's one thing I would have done differently, but it's a real minor thing. The whole final battle scene is just tremendous. I mean, I have almost no complaints about that whole sequence.
Since you're the expert on the subject, can you speak to how the CGI, does it make the good column, or is it bad, or is it ugly?
Depends on what part of the movie we're talking about. There are parts of it that are perfectly fine.
You okay with Hemsworth's gut? Was that okay?
Yeah, sure. It got. Look, the big Thorbowski was funny for about 2 minutes. After that, it just got tired and old. Again, there's parts of the CGI that are good. Voromir's looks great. That scene where Hawkeye mimics Thanos sitting back up with the Soul Stone in his hand is great. There's some stuff with Nebula. The Hulk looks good by and large. Then there's and most of the final battle sequence is very well rendered. Not all of it, but the vast majority of it is very well rendered. So, again, by and large, it's great. It's all perfectly acceptable. There's a few instances that made me go, "Oh God, my eyes hurt," but I'll get to those later.
All right. Just a couple of quick things. We spent a lot of time on this, and I want to move on to the next bit of the review. So, what works narratively, structurally? This is a 3-act play. The first act is tragedy and setup. The second act is so some have almost called it a different movie. I wouldn't go that far, but the tone has a drastic change, and we are into a heist movie. We are stealing things from different set pieces, and that all works pretty well. They did themselves a great service by not just making it Ocean's 11 with superheroes, but giving Cap and Iron Man and the rest of the characters real good character moments with each other, members of their family or lost loves, etc. And also that this is the bit where they reintroduce Thanos, and they do so in a really great way because it's not just about reintroducing Thanos as this looming menace. You also have another take on the relationship between Nebula and Gamora, and raise your hand if you thought that was going to be a big deal in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because it's become a huge deal now. I didn't see it. I honestly, that came out of left field. The idea that Nebula and Gamora and their relationship was so central to the overall narrative of the Marvel Cinematic Universe comes out of fucking left field for me. Utterly surprised. I liked it, but surprised. And then, the whole third act is literally, it's just all the good guys, all the bad guys, yeah, and in a big schmoz. So
you keep using that word, schmoz.
It's a pro wrestling reference.
Oh.
A big battle.
Okay.
A Royal Rumble, if you will. No.
How dare you?
No, it looks and that was laden with great moments, some greater than others, and I think that's also largely dependent on your own point of view. If you dislike certain characters that got good moments in this, Captain Marvel, then some of it's not going to work for you. I shouldn't listen to other people's reviews. Anyway, let me talk about the Hulk for just a minute. I promise I won't go crazy.
Hey, you're the one taking up your own time.
So I've already talked about how not giving him an opportunity to do the thing on screen was a major disservice to the character. I also don't like the way he looks in that first scene. I think the CGI is not great. He basically looks like Jolly Green. He looks like the Jolly Green Giant. It's just none of that. I'll get to it when I get to bad. But the rest of the Hulk stuff is great. Mark Ruffalo just almost feeling ashamed of the Hulk, even though he's made peace with it in the Battle of New York and having to imitate an angry Hulk. I laughed hard at that, despite myself. I was like, so I enjoyed all that stuff.
Half-hearted smashing for sure.
And then he gets a really great. When you think about great Hulk moments, it's usually him being destructive. He gets a really great hero moment. He sacrifices his arm essentially in order to undo the snap. And I was happy they gave him that much, given given that he has nothing else to do. Yeah, it was a weird thing, but it was like they were very and this goes to the craft of the film. They didn't, for the overpowered characters, there's logical explanations for why they didn't just win the day easily. The Hulk got taken out because he undid the snap. Captain Marvel got punched with the fucking Power Stone. Also shows up in the fourth quarter. Let me talk about her really quick, and then we'll start doing the bad. So, there's been a lot of complaining about Captain Marvel. I won't get into all of it, but needless to say, people felt like she was Poochie. in this movie, where like she just fucks off after like the first 15 minutes, and I'm like, oh, what did you? People, I guess, were afraid she was going to be. They were going to use the heavily laden cut of this movie with her in it. There's rumors that there's a cut of this movie where they use her a lot, and they did not use that cut, or they did not use those scenes because of the reactions to Captain Marvel. But either way, this is one of those things where I actually agreed. I agreed with that. I think this needed to focus on your core Avengers from the first two phases, and she'll have her time in the next phase. I think that they used her the perfect amount, and I think they used her the perfect way. She's in a meaningless first 15 minutes that accomplishes nothing, but goes to her being overpowered. And I thought they handled the writing of that well. Look, I'm so powerful I can do amazing things. We'll take out Thanos, lickety-split, and it doesn't matter. None of it matters.
Look at me. I'm so powerful, literally no one gets to have the last word except me. She literally, no one even zings her verbally. Anytime someone tries, she gets a comeback, and then some other character in the scene goes, yeah, she's right.
And then you don't see her, and then after the one little bit with Black Widow, you don't see her again in the movie. She's not a part of it. She does not affect the plot. And then even in the battle, she doesn't show up, she doesn't show up when the portals start opening. She's literally like a fourth quarter thing, and she does exactly what she did in her own movie. She zips through this fucking ship, which was great because there was nothing in the scene that could have taken out Thanos' ship, and it's a callback to her own movie, which I thought was done well. And then again, everyone's like, there's been all these reviews. Well, why didn't she just zip around and kill everybody? Why didn't she do this? Why didn't she do that? And I thought it was fairly evident in the scene itself why she wasn't able to use all of this massive power that she has to do that. She pretty much focuses just on Thanos, who's an even match for her, and then she got hit with the Power Stone. I don't know why that's difficult for people to understand. So, all right, let's go around the horn again. Chris, what didn't you like?
I especially the first time through watching it. I actually enjoyed it more the second time, because the first time I was getting hung up on all the little things that I didn't like. By the time I got to the second viewing, none of that stuff mattered that much anymore. But yeah, I thought there was a little too much humor. They leaned too much into that, especially the stuff Robert referenced it earlier. The stuff with Thor was really funny at first. As the movie progressed, I was just like, okay, we get it. Let's get the old Thor back.
Not for nothing, but this could have been called Avengers beating a dead horse, right?
Yeah. I swear I was waiting for Thor to, after he gets Mjolnir back and he says, yes, I'm still worthy. I was really hoping for his next bit to go, and this with Stormbreaker will really tie the room together.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
So there was that. The scene with Scott and the experiments for the time turtle. It was a funny scene. I really liked it. But when they're showing old man Scott and then baby Scott, I was like, getting a little too cutesy, guys. We're supposed to take this movie seriously, right? But it was a funny scene. The one thing that I'm still a stickler on, and I'm not sure what you guys think about this, because it's kind of a minor thing, but it really bugs me, and it's going to bug me every time I watch the movie, is Cap from 2012 using the line, I can do this all day. and turning that into a joke. He doesn't use that line if he's in the middle of a fight that he's winning or is even. Like, that's when he's getting his ass kicked and his way of letting his opponent know he's not going to give up. And they used it for kind of a throwaway joke, which was kind of a funny joke, but that just really bugs me. Probably because I'm a Cap guy. And
Hail Hydra.
That was cool. I thought it was a nice reference to the Secret Empire comics that everybody hates, and it worked well in the context of the story. the going back to the 5 years later thing, which I think perfectly set up this movie and as a starting point for this story. Once you get to the end and Thanos has been defeated, how are they going to find a threat more intense than Thanos? He was literally going to kill every living thing. But aside from that, they've defeated Thanos. Everyone on Earth who was snapped away and has come back, and all of their loved ones have gone through this traumatic event where they lost someone for 5 years. Like, the MCU is no longer anything close to resembling real life. Did they break the MCU? I mean, I'm still going to watch the movies. I'm sure the movies are still going to be really good, but it almost seems like this the last Marvel movie, and it almost makes more sense for them to just start over, because I just don't know where you go from here, where the stakes are going to be as high. Which
you want a new issue number one?
Let's pump the brakes.
Okay.
See, when there's a new issue number one in comics, it's not a reboot. It's just the same characters in a new number one. Anyway, that's just kind of something that kind of worried me as I watched it the first time. I'm not as concerned about it now, but it's something that still kind of rattles around in my head. Like how are they gonna not top this movie, but how are they gonna make the movies anyway relatable in the future?
I cannot believe you were not excited for multicultural Avengers. What's wrong
shut
up.
I guess that's it. Yeah, the first third of the movie, or maybe even the first 2/3 of the movie, a little too drawn out. I felt like on the rewatch, especially, like, maybe it's because I was anticipating the battle at the end. I wanted to hurry up and get to it, but it seemed like there's a lot less of a rewatchability in that first 2/3 than there is once the action really gets going towards the end.
Let me piggyback on that. I won't do my own bad section. I'm gonna piggyback on some of what you guys say, I think, instead, for time. But that was one of my major criticisms of the movie. That first hour takes for fucking ever. It drags and drags. And look, I'm okay with the depressing parts, believe it or not. Like, I'm okay with, with them sort of trying to hold on to life as they know it, and processing and all of that. I'm not okay with what seemed like an interminable amount of gags, and not only that, I'm also not okay with them drawing out, how are they going to do time? Like, I feel like it took them forever to get to a point that was obvious in the movie. Like, they're going to do time travel. They're going to figure this out. Like, can we just get there already? Like, get to the fucking mall. Someone tried to talk over me or wanted to add something. Whoever that was, go.
You just mentioned at the beginning that this is a 3-act play, and I'm not sure that this isn't a 4-act story, and that's part of what I think drags down some of the viewing experience at times. Is there's so much they have to contend with, that instead of the traditional 3-act structure, they actually wind up with something that's closer to 4 individual acts.
You gotta expound upon that in 10 words or less. Go.
I can't do it in 10 words or less.
10 words, damn.
You
got one word, go.
I'll give you 20. I just break the 4 acts up for me.
Okay, you have the beginning where they come to the realization of loss. You have them trying to cope with it. You have them screwing around figuring out time travel. You actually have time travel and the acquisition of the stones. Okay, those first two blend together a little more than that, a little more. Alternatively, if you actually do the opening, time travel, time heist, anti-snap, big battle, resolution as that, because the resolution in this movie is almost its own act, as opposed to others where it's just kind of a nice little epilogue. It almost does feel like a separate entire part of the movie that takes place after after Thanos and his army gets dusted by Tony.
Okay, I feel like you just said that there were 10 acts.
Look, you flustered my point. I dovetailed a little bit. Again, I think there's probably a better argument for a 4-act story than a 3-act story as it pertains to this movie.
All right, I'll beat you up offline about what the hell you're talking about. Alexis, go. Bad.
I really didn't have much to say that was bad about this movie, but there was one thing, and this is going to sound weird because, Chris, was it you or Robert who was saying the scene that on Vormir that mimics the previous scene with the Soul Stone? Which one of you said you liked that?
That was Robert.
Robert, sorry. And I
specifically Hawkeye in that moment, but
I hate to say it, that actually kind of didn't really gel with me, but there's a reason. I have watched Infinity War more times than I you know, I am the nerd that basically sits back, watches a movie, and then goes, I'm going to watch it again. And I put it back on.
You do it in that voice?
Have you never watched Invader Zim?
No, he hasn't. Trust
I
me,
haven't. I'm a million years old. No.
Look, I appreciate a Gur reference. You're good.
Trust me, my Gur imitation is actually my favorite among my friends. But I actually had trouble with it because it's so much a shot for shot from the previous one, even having Black Widow land in almost the exact same pose as Gamora. and I'm sitting back realizing if you hadn't watched Infinity War recently, that would actually be kind of cool. But to have seen it like right before you went to go see Endgame and then to see the scene, it just comes off as kind of corny.
There are some shot comparisons where it just looks like they superimposed Scarlett Johansson on top of Zoe Saldana.
I'll say whenever.
They're not wrong.
I'm not saying that scene is bad. That's a great scene, and it's it's very sad and it's very tragic for the character. But yeah, the fact that she's superimposed over Zoe Saldana, and then you got Jeremy Renner superimposed over Josh Brolin in the pool. I mean, even coming up the exact same way they did, where it looks like he's floating in the stars. I was sitting there going, "Oh dear God, I just saw this." But again, I think that's a perspective thing, since I had just seen Infinity War not too long before I saw that.
You're not off. There's a lot of complaints about one. There's a narrative complaint about that scene, and there's a craft complaint about that scene. The narrative complaint is, how the fuck didn't Nebula tell them, hey, by the way, you're going to get there, and some guy in a bad Halloween costume is going to tell you one of you has to kill yourself. Lots of luck.
Robert and I were talking about this last week, actually, after we had to cut the show. He and I were talking for a while. I brought that up. I was like, so is there a reason Nebula didn't... I mean, did she not...
For God's sake, she didn't know.
Yeah, I don't know why.
No. In all seriousness, there are literally two people who know the process by which the Soul Stone is acquired. One of them's Thanos, one of them's Gamora, and they're both dead.
Can you go on YouTube now and type in capital letters on both the RLM and Doug Walker's fucking page then? Because neither group could figure this out. Bunch of smarties.
Look, if they're that stupid, then that's on them. My job is not to. I don't go out of my way to alleviate people's ignorance like that. If they want to know, they can listen to this show, which is better than theirs. So suck it.
Aw.
Pay a bit of attention. Gamora knows. Sorry, not Gamora. Nebula knows exactly this. Thanos and Gamora went to Vormir to get the Soul Stone. Thanos came back with it. Gamora's not with him anymore. That's it. Now, let's go through a few of the different scenarios that could lead to this situation. There could have been a bunch of armed guards, and Gamora just died fighting them. He could have sacrificed her, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the only way to achieve the goal of obtaining it.
Once he got the Soul Stone, he could have just killed her because he didn't need her anymore.
Yeah. There's any number of ways to wind up at the point they wind up at. There's too much missing information for anyone to complain that Nebula didn't tell them. Nebula didn't know. Again, there's two people on that planet when Thanos acquires the Soul Stone. Only two of them know what's up. One of them, they're both dead.
I think the thing I'm pointing out, though, Rob, is that in the movie, they don't... She says it, and everyone just kind of brushes past it. There's no beat there where they have to deal with the possibility that somebody might not come back because Gamora didn't come back from that trip. And because I totally get what you're saying. She didn't know what the details were. But it would have been nice if they had pumped the brakes during the... Because here's the thing, and this is one of my narrative complaints. And the time heist itself is fucking great. I don't have any real complaints about any parts of that, necessarily. The planning of the time heist, and this actually got brought up by Half in the Bag. Like, Ocean's 11, a good half of the movie, if not more, is them planning the heist and practicing and doing different things. And I realize we don't want this movie to be 8 hours long, but it would have been nice if we got a little less arguing over selfies and doing Lebowski jokes, and more of them trying to figure out how this time heist is going to work and what preparations need to be made for each scene they're going to drop in on. So when she says, hey, Gamora went to Vormir and Gamora didn't come back, it would have been nice for someone to have been shown raising a hand going, what the fuck does that mean? And her saying, I don't know. I'm just telling you. And then have maybe Black Widow and Hawkeye kind of look at each other and go, all right, we'll see when we get there. But something. Show me, don't tell me, and don't skip over shit. Which is probably my biggest complaint about the narrative of this movie.
Huzzah!
Just waiting for somebody there.
I think I mentioned this to Robert last week. I would have liked if they would have just had a moment when Black Widow and Hawkeye are talking, and they're just like, "Do you think Nebula knew about this?" Just like a little passing moment like that, just that comment, and then they keep going on with what they were saying before.
I'll take that. If you don't want to do it during the planning, then at least have an acknowledgement on the way there. What do you think we're going to see? I don't know, but Nebula, blah blah, yakety schmackety. Anything structurally, we just saw it. We literally just saw the same goddamn thing, only switched Jeremy Renner out for Josh Brolin. And it's like, it's too close together. You know what I mean? In a movie where there's so much revisiting and repetition, did we really need to see the Vormir scene shot for fucking shot outside of the two of them fighting up there? You know what I mean?
Negative.
Negative, you disagree, or negative, you agree?
No, I would not have liked to have seen that. I mean, it didn't need to be in there. It could have been one of those things where they could have just say, hey, if you need to go take a piss, go do it now, because you've seen this before.
Exactly. It's a great bathroom scene.
We're not doing an intermission, but this is our intermission scene. You will get no new information from this scene. Robert, I kind of plowed my car into your bus of explanation. Did you want to say anything else about this?
No. I agree. There's definitely things they should have done from a structural perspective to address the issue. But that said, like you mentioned before, there's a bunch of morons who don't quite understand that Captain Marvel plowing through a spaceship, which, while unbelievably stupid in some respects, is completely different from her having... No, I have a better example. You have a bunch of morons who think the Eagle should have flown the hobbits to frickin' Mordor.
Eagle taxi service. Here we go.
Don't get me fucking started.
I'm just saying, you have a bunch of morons who think that should be they think about that. And so am I surprised that people can't put this basic logic together? No.
So now that we've done mansplaining all over you, Alexis, is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
There is one thing that I do. I'm on the fence of whether or not I wanted to see this or not. When we reviewed Infinity War, I mentioned that one thing I was really okay, by the way, what is that weird squeaking noise in the background? Who is that coming from?
Chris has got to change battery for his
chair.
Fire alarm.
God damn it, stop recording in your kitchen, Chris.
Sorry, it sounds like the smoke detector needs batteries, and it's driving me insane.
Look, this wouldn't be a Radulich and Broadcasting production if there weren't ambient noise in the background. Yeah. I'm waiting for my son to ride in on your dogs.
My dog's already interrupted. Did you hear them earlier?
I'm telling you, I'm waiting for him to come in via fucking dog sled and ask for chocolate.
Yeah.
Joined by with Colton riding shotgun in a hand of bread and water.
He's got a big loaf. He's just carrying it on his back. That's perfect.
Speaking of revisiting, eh? All right, Alexis, do your thing, and then let's move on.
I'm on the fence whether or not I think this would have added to the movie. But when we reviewed Infinity War, I mentioned that I wanted to see more scenes of just maybe the common person, or maybe just some of the more low-key figures that we have seen throughout the Marvel Universe reacting to the snap. Maybe Jane Foster is in her lab and people start disappearing around her. Maybe, maybe Ned is in school with other students and the students start disappearing. Just something like, but looking back on it now, it's like, I don't know if that really would have added or not, but it's still something I think I would have liked to have seen. And I'm hoping that maybe we'll get that in a deleted scene or something when the DVD comes out. Because I thought that would have been really cool to see more of just how everyone else, not the Avengers, but everyone else, just your average person deals with looking up and seeing half of everyone around them go poof.
Okay. I mean, I'm on the fence about that because on the one hand, I think you're right. I think perspective. I think it's another perspective on the movie that would have been interesting. On the other hand, we just got finished arguing about why do we need to see the same thing done twice. And, even Hawkeye's family being dusted, you don't actually see them dusted. They just disappear, which had a different effect on me than watching the dusting. So I think it's person to person on that. It's a great visual point though. Jesse, hit it, Johnny.
Oh my goodness, we're in the bad here, right?
We're in the bad.
The bad stuff.
All right, so here comes my lecture on time travel. Everyone, buckle in.
No, you guys have already touched on a lot of the stuff that I already just kind of jotted down here. The Hulk was a big thing for me because I wanted to see him get like some semblance of revenge on Thanos, like some kind of a beatdown, and then to see him as Professor Hulk, and he's like this, this kind of tamed down thing. I remember watching Infinity War right before going to see it, and I was like, okay, Hulk's going to get his moment. He got his ass handed to him on the ship.
Hulk hasn't won a fight since he beat the fuck out of Loki. Do you know that? You know how angry that makes me?
Mark, no. That is inaccurate. You bitched at me for a solid hour that he beat Thor on Junk Planet.
Okay. Good point.
You also seem to have forgotten that he's the one who clobbered Ultron out of existence when Ultron was about to monologue.
Well, no, fucking Vision took him out.
Look, at the start of Ultron's big monologue, Hulk comes up and smashes him over into a corner, where he then gets into a Quinjet and goes on his bit of a murder rampage.
I'm wrong. I'm absolutely wrong. He has won a few fights since Loki. The last one was against Fenris in Ragnarok. Yeah, he beat up the dog. Go ahead, Jesse.
So we don't get Hulk smash, we get Hulk snap in here. I'm not too thrilled with that. I wanted to see a throwdown here between him and Thanos, at least a little bit. But anyway, all right. So that's fine. You guys kind of already touched on that. And the time travel, yes, I have an issue. Not with the time travel itself. The 5-year jump, that's the main thing I have the issue with, because at the end of the show, at the end of the movie, you see Peter Parker hanging out with his high school friends. Wait a second. I thought we jumped 5 years ahead. He specifically said
they were all dead.
They all got dusted.
You see a bunch of previously dusted people reunite.
All right, then. Okay, well, I guess I'll accept that.
There's no other logical explanation. Everybody.
Seriously, my serious hope for Far From Home is that they get back to class and there's literally half as many people in the senior class.
It's just like, wait a second.
Seriously, the entire cast from Far From Home either got dusted or nothing in the world makes sense.
That's
I would like at least one line in Far From Home where they mention, so and so, that was 5 years ago. We're 5 years behind the rest of them, or something like that.
I don't like that. I don't like that we have to try and explain that. That's probably my biggest gripes. I really don't have a whole lot of other things other than just the fact we got a lot of questions coming out of this, which was most likely done on purpose.
Name 3.
Well, name 3 questions?
Name 3 questions. I'll answer them for you. I'm the great Fellini.
Well, I already posted the stuff about Captain America and him going back in time, and there's a whole lot of like time travel, alternate reality stuff. Like, okay, how's he get back to our reality? That's
for the love, you and my brother. I swear to you,
he
cannot.
He lived in an
Mark's
alternate
supposed to
time.
be.
He lived in an alternate timeline that rejoined the continuity after Peggy died.
No.
I don't know what the hell. What fucking rejoin?
No,
What?
you are both wrong.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Please enlighten us, Mr. Wizard.
Yes, Mr. Wizard, please.
Okay.
But you have 10 words.
Oh no.
He kept a single dose of Pym particles.
Okay.
Okay, so he goes back in time to, return all the things. Then and because they established that if you know dates and locations, you can then, because Tony and Cap individually kind of wind up God, why is my brain stopped working?
Hang on,
They
I
ad-lib a journey through time that was not pre-planned. In this instance, Steve just drops everything off, and when he gets to 2, he might have even just. That might be
let me
too
help.
complicated.
Let me help you with this.
Did he
simplify it? Hang on.
Okay.
Let me see if I got this, because I think I know where you're going. Essentially, he lives out in an alternate timeline. That much is true. With Peggy, I think probably after she died, he goes, okay, good enough. I'm ready to go, and then uses the Pym particles to go back to a place in time, then forward to where he needs to be.
Well, he can just go to wherever he needs to go.
Well, you gotta figure he has to go back to where the divergence in the timeline starts.
and Captain America
That's
gets
why
all this because he has.
That's why
Map
he
Quest.
returns to the moment in time that he left. He's not actively gone for all that long.
No, No. By the laws of, hey, everyone listening to this, prepare to have your nosebleeds. He goes, and the laws of this are, he goes back, when he decides to live with Peggy in the past, he's creating an alternate timeline. If the timelines don't rejoin, if you're shooting that down, then he has to go back to the place in time where he caused the divergence, and then not cause the divergence. That was the whole point of returning the stones to their original place in time.
No. The purpose of return. Hold on, no. The purpose of returning the stones is the cosmic importance of the stones' continuity of existence.
Did you not see her do the thing with the timeline and then the black timeline? They're saying
Yes.
don't create alternate timelines.
Did you? No. The point of that was it is the existence of the stones that helps ensure the proper flow of time.
Somewhere out there, someone is wishing a meteor would hit the two of us. Go ahead.
The primary importance of returning the stones is to ensure that there are not catastrophic cosmic shifts in reality because the Infinity Stones are no longer there, perpetuating balance. If the only thing that changes in it from one timeline to the next is, Cap and Peggy get to live happily ever after, that's not a big deal. There is no massive cosmic significance. He's not actually altering the future he's returning to anyway.
Okay. For the sake of time, you win. Jesse, are you good?
I mean, look, again, Mark, you and I have done this before, and I believe it always ends with you going, I like cheese.
Yes, as I said, lots of questions, okay?
Name 2 more.
No, you're done. We're done. We're moving on. Who's next?
No. Well, were they all concerning time travel, Marty?
Did you just not go through 10 instances in which shit had to go right in order to rejoin timelines? You skew into a tangent. That's what happens, okay? And you don't go back. But anyway.
That's only partially true. That actually depends, not in the time travel system that they're employing.
Do you have any other questions not concerning time travel, Doc?
Go. Just move forward, please. Please.
Robert Winfree, what didn't work? What didn't work for you in this movie? What goes into the bad column?
Oh boy. Okay.
Keep it to 10 things.
The amount of comedy, it's been touched on before, the amount of comedy throughout the first bit is very off-putting to me.
You ain't kidding.
The comedy, and I'll draw a very specific parallel here so that I'm not comparing apples to oranges. The comedy, such as it is in Infinity War, starts out only. It exists only when they do not know the full extent of the problems facing them. Tony stops wisecracking as soon as he realizes no serious cosmic threat. The Guardians of the Galaxy aren't full of one-liners. There's still humor to be found, don't get me wrong, but a lot of that is more structural humor than character humor.
Spider-Man labeling his action moves as he's going through portals.
Yes. That's the kind of thing that is okay, that I find largely appropriate because Spider-Man does that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also not a lot of that. A lot of the humor that you find in Infinity War takes on a kind of gallows humor quality as the severity of their situation continues to dawn on them. We get almost the opposite effect here, where, and I'd be fine if this were, and it's okay, let me be clear about this. In the case of Thor specifically, it's pretty obviously a coping mechanism. There's no excuse for anyone else to be making the jokes they're making.
Let me piggyback on that for a second. Here's my problem with the humor in this. The gags go on forever. The cell phone bit went on forever. The Thor bit went on forever. The Thor/Fortnite bit goes on forever. I mean, there's a couple of instances where I'm trying to stop myself from screaming at the screen. Get on with it. And I feel like they sacrificed a lot of narrative that they could have used, or a lot of dramatic tension for, well, half the audience are probably a bunch of retards, so we're going to need a lot of comedy here.
Yeah, that bothers me. I mentioned before, I don't know what happened to Thanos in that year and a half, 2-year period between Guardians 1 and Infinity War, but it turned him into an actually interesting character. Because in this case, he's not the most mustache twirly of mustache twirly villains. I mean, he's not that bad. But he went from an interesting, well-written character to a guy literally standing in front of an army and in front of our heroes going, you know what? Nah, I'm going to wipe everything out. And, I mean, they kind of had to go that route, and so they came up with a largely acceptable excuse for it, but it's still kind of a problem for me personally, considering they had taken, again, a character that was not only their best villain, but one of the best characters that they'd been able to cobble together, and turned him into kind of a one-note thing, just because they didn't have time for anything else, or for the sake of simplicity. I don't know which one, but one of those two. There's instances of CGI. A lot of Thanos' CGI actually goes in the bad category for me. A lot of the stuff on his ship in particular, he's just not well rendered. It was really kind of a problem for me, actually, because there's scenes in Infinity War where...
It's very dark, isn't it? I mean, it's not the Battle of Winterfell dark, but it's dark. Like it's not, like, those are not well-lit scenes.
Some of them,
What's a Winterfell?
Don't worry about it.
That joke was for anyone who watched Game of Thrones on Sunday. That was it. That's the only reason why I did it.
Kidding. We'd like to thank Melisandre and the Dragons for actually allowing us to see something.
Go on, Robert.
So again, some of it's the darkness. Again, some of it I think is just the CGI quality. It's just not all that great. Once they get to the actual battle, he looks a little bit better when he's in motion, which is ironic considering how many other times that's been the problem area. I mean, again, in Infinity War, there's whole scenes where he is rendered, and you can see the hair where he shaved his head. It's really beautiful stuff. And then in this, it's anything else that went into the bad that I don't want to touch on when I get to the ugly? No, I think that's going to be it for me as far as the bad goes. I mean, there's not a whole lot of it, to be perfectly honest. I mean, what is bad is it's kind of on the pervasive side, but there's not a lot of the bad.
No, it's. I mean, it's not a bad movie. There's problems with it, but it's not bad, and it's also. Anyone feel free to disagree. It's also not, as I said before, not as good as Infinity War. It's just, it's got the same problem that the Lord of the Rings trilogy has for me, where Two Towers is a better movie, but Lord of the Rings is much more satisfying. I'm sorry, Return of the King, rather, is much more satisfying. All right. The ugly, for those of you who've never done this with me before, it really can be anything. Jesse, I'm going to start with Jesse, because he's got a great ugly. But the ugly doesn't necessarily have to deal with the film itself. It can be surrounding things. Like if you were in a theater full of people who were, I don't know, throwing their underwear at the screen for some odd reason, you can talk about that if you want. It's whatever you want to talk about, whatever burning desires you've got related to the film that don't necessarily have to be about the film. So it could be whatever you want it to be. Jesse, the ugly, go.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, they know the story that I'm about to tell you. Okay. I explained what happened to me at the theater after we were done seeing Endgame. So you may have seen on your social medias warnings. You may want to think about taking these children to a movie that's 3 hours long. And yes, I did have my reservations. So I have my 14-year-old daughter. Got no problems with her. I guarantee you, she's going to be able to go to the bathroom. She'll be able to find it fine. And she'll also be able to hold it. That's a novel concept. But yes, she'll be able to make it through the film. Won't have much to worry about. Just have a good time watching it with her. Now, my 9-year-old son. All right, all I have to do is get him in there and maybe show him where the bathroom is. Which, lo and behold, my daughter actually stepped up to the plate and said, "Dad, I'll show him where the bathroom is. I'll take him out there, and then if he has to go, then he can go by himself." I was like, okay, just scream if somebody touches. Okay, that's what you got to do. But no, he was fine. He actually went to the bathroom by himself, came back. Perfect. Great viewing experience. Okay. Now, one thing I didn't take into consideration was that, yes, children will have issues watching the movie. They may get up. They may get a little antsy. Caleb did ask me what time it was like 5 fucking times throughout the movie. I don't know why. I'm like, dude, the movie. Okay, the movie. You don't have to worry about the time. Experience the movie. But the other thing you have to understand is that children do not understand keeping spoilers from the public. Okay? So we leave the theater, and this doesn't occur to me and that this is going to be an issue. We walk out, there's tears that are flowing on some of the guests. There's definitely, we're all excited what we just watched. And it's 9:00. We get out to the van, and thank goodness nobody was around. But Caleb practically yells, "I can't believe Iron Man died." And I was like, holy shit. So I stopped immediately, and I grabbed...
At which point Jesse hit the gas, and poor Caleb got stuck there in the parking lot.
I don't know this kid.
Don't get in my van. What are you doing? I took him by the shoulder, and I the old firm parent grip. Okay, hey, I'm not going to beat you right now, but we've got talking to do, okay? I guide him to the van, and all the while he's like, "Dad, what's going on? Why are you mad?" I put him in the van, and I say,
"That's my favorite part of this. Is he has no clue what he just did.
Yeah, no clue, none." He gets into the van, and I said, "All right, let me tell you a little something about not being a shithead." And of course, I explained to him, "Look, we can't. This is what spoilers are. You do not want to say anything." And not only that, we get home. And the next day, my daughter has a get-together for her birthday party, and she's going to have some kids stay the night. And I have to, again, it catches me off guard. Oh, shit, I better tell Caleb not to say a word about the movie we just went and saw, because that's going to be the first thing that he wants to tell somebody. It's like, oh, we went and saw Endgame, and guess what happened? So I before the kids showed up, I said, look, we can't say anything about the movie because we don't want to spoil it for anybody. So if there is any ugly thing that happened, it is, we were talking about it. Somebody had got assaulted because they spoiled the movie. That actually happened.
In China.
Yeah, you do not want to play with spoilers here. People are unfriending, blocking, all that stuff on social media. My advice would be to, if you have not seen the movie, you're obviously not listening to this podcast and have not seen the movie. But advise your friends, if you have not seen the movie, don't get on social media. You only have yourself to blame. You can blame anybody else you want, but you're the one who brought that phone up. You're the one that looked. You're the one that looked on Twitter, Facebook.
You're the one that read the Wikipedia page.
You're the one that went on. Chris, have you gotten any blowback from asking people what their thoughts were on Facebook? Has anybody given you shit about it yet?
Yeah, I put it pretty clearly that there were going to be spoilers.
Okay, I didn't know if anybody was giving
comments
a hard time
and whatnot. So nah.
Yeah. So that's the kind of risk that you run getting on social media and taking your kids to the movie. There you go. There's the ugly.
Chris Armstrong of the Unspoken Decade, speak your truth.
I don't know that I really have anything for the ugly. Maybe the Leviathan getting punched in the face and then by a giant man, and then him also squishing Cull Obsidian and down into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess.
Alexis, Hejna.
I really don't have anything to say. Like I said, I agree with what you guys are saying. The ugliness has been about people's reactions to spoilers. I said earlier what happened when some guy accidentally saw a comment I left on someone else's board. There's a dude on ESPN who spoiled the ending, and fans have started a petition to get him fired.
Unreal. It's fucking unreal.
Well, let me put it this way: I had to wait till the next night to watch the Battle of Winterfell on Game of Thrones. I stayed an extra night in St. Louis so I could see my grandmother, and she doesn't have HBO. And I knew that if I went online, I was going to see spoilers. And it was either going to be a million articles talking about, whatever happened, or I was going to see my friends posting going, oh my God, that was amazing. And even just getting ideas of what they said could spoil it for me. I mean, you see someone just wrote, I can't believe it on that. You're still going to have an idea of what happened.
Oh, yeah. You're piecing things together. The thing is, if you're familiar with the franchise or the property that's getting potentially spoiled, they could be as vague as they want. But you will start putting 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, and you'll add it all together, and you figured it out. And by the time you see it, you're like, shit.
Yeah, so I stayed off social media for 24 hours. If I went to Facebook, I immediately just opened up on my phone my notifications so that I would not actually see the wall. So that way I could respond if anyone had sent me any messages. It's like, guys, if you don't want to be spoiled, it's like, do we want to have something spoiled? No. Is it rude to just basically walk into a movie theater and say Darth Vader is Luke's father? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that is rude. But at the same time, I feel that the whole no spoiler thing has gone from just a common courtesy to a crazed complex that we have to deal with, and it's ridiculous.
The amount of anti-spoiler fascists out there it borders on the absurd. If I might cite an example from, to your point, from personal history. There's a... God, I am such a nerd. I hate owning up to it, but I am. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with the Twitch stream Critical Role. It's just a Dungeons & Dragons campaign that's broadcast. It's done by a bunch of voice actors. If you're into that sort of thing, I can recommend it. If you're not, fair play, I don't care. But they started their second campaign about a year ago. They had 115 broadcast episodes of their first campaign that went to its conclusion that took place over several years. I mean, each episode is, at least 3 hours long, give or take. The number of people who say, don't spoil stuff from campaign 1. Or you have to put spoiler tags around, so-and-so's character dying at such and such date, or this minor plot point, or it drives me up the wall. There's common courtesy, I completely agree. In my instance, it's about 48 hours. And I'm not going to go out of my way to spoil anything for somebody, but I think there comes a point when, you know what, if you put yourself into certain situations, be that, via the internet or via family. I mean, my dad got a little annoyed at me when I spoiled the end of the second season of Sons of Anarchy for him after the entire series had concluded. Like, I'm sorry. There's
Way to go.
Look, there's only so, but I'm not going to unbelievably censor myself when we're talking about that show in particular. Gemma kills Tara, and like, oh, hey, wait a minute. What do you, you should have warned me about spoilers. I'm like, Dad, that particular episode aired like 2 years ago. Okay, this is on you now.
You mean Sopranos just ends with a sudden stop? What the fuck?
What the hell?
No, you're right. I had the Red Wedding spoiled for me in Game of Thrones, but I was so behind on watching it. It's like, yeah, sorry. I was a little upset, but at the same time, it's like, well, it took me a while to start watching it. It's on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Robert, Ugly, go.
Oh, boy. Do I have to say it?
You don't have to. We're at 2
Korg!
hours. Oh, Jesus.
I hate him so much.
Flames on the side of your face, heaving, seething.
Not a joke. Every time he was on screen, I gave the movie theater the double bird.
It was one fucking scene, you psycho.
When they gave him a credit at the end. Seriously. Because he gets a whole credit. Korg does nothing but sit around, jack off, and play Fortnite.
He gets his rocks off. Get it?
Oh!
Let me be clear.
Go to the corner.
Let me be clear about this. Korg is absolutely the type of douchebag that plays Fortnite. Taiki Waititi gets a big credit as Korg. I literally raised my arms and flipped off the screen.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I'm sure that didn't look too weird in the theater either.
I actually got cheered a little bit for that one. I am apparently not alone in my hatred of Korg. No, screw that. Again, the Thor stuff got old very quickly. And again, it bordered on the ugly because it just keeps going. It just never stops. I think
Caleb's biggest pop of the night was Fortnite showing up on that movie screen.
Because of course it was.
He yelled out Fortnite, and I said, "Do you realize you were the only kid that did that?" He's like, "No, there were other people that said." I said, "No, you were the only kid that yelled out Fortnite in the middle of a darkened theater." And
that's when Jesse got up and moved seats and put on a fake mustache.
Yeah, I couldn't move anywhere. I had Caleb to the left of me, and I got Sobby McSoberson to the right. I mean, all she did was cry all fucking night. I was like, couldn't go anywhere. Fucking theater was packed.
I remember. I had one other thing. Okay, much as I loved Cap's ending, and I genuinely do love the ending they gave him narratively. I mean, again, I think the only thing I would have done differently is instead of just kind of that cut to them dancing in the house, I would have shown their reunion. And I've said before, they had a very specific date and location in mind as he was about to drive that plane into the ice. He just shows, like, I imagine she goes there anyway, even knowing he's dead. And in this reality, he just shows up anyway. And that would have dovetailed into that scene of them dancing, and that's, again, minor thing. But the fact that, let me be clear about this, because I don't hate the fact that they retired Steve Rogers. I really don't. I mean, if Chris Evans is done, there's no one else that's really going to play that character. He was so perfect as Steve Rogers. I don't even hate that, given the way they set things up, that Bucky didn't take up the shield of Captain America. He's not in a place emotionally where he can be that guy. The fact that they've set up Falcon as largely a gag and a nothing character, and then he's the one that gets it. And I know Sam Wilson has arcs in the comics where he is Captain America, and again, I don't hate Flapton, but just the way, I don't think it was set up appropriately. I really did not like that, Steve's actual lifelong friend Bucky isn't the one to go over and talk with him on that bench. I mean, and if you want, and I know that it's weird because you couldn't actually set up that scene if Steve confided in Bucky that, no, this is my out, this is what I'm going to do, then the scene loses some of its power if they actually show that sequence being set up. But again, leaving his actual best friend and the guy he kind of blew up the Avengers for, just kind of peacefully by the sidelines as we set up intersectionality Avengers 3, just no. Sorry, that did not work for me at all. And it could have worked if it was set up better, but the way it played out, nah, I was not a fan of that.
All right. The only real ugly that I have related to the actual craft of the film is I thought the Hulk CGI looked like shit in the beginning. Got better as the movie went on, but when you first see him in the diner, I'm like, ugh. This is unnerving, and whoever did this did a terrible job. Later on in the film, it looks fine, but we're running at 2 hours here, so I'm going to start to wrap up here. There's a lot of talk. I made a joke earlier about the multicultural Avengers. Look, there's a lot of they should just. Somebody said before they should just start over. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety about where they're going next. I don't know why, and this might be a personal thing, but I'm excited to see where this goes. As a company, like, this isn't Lucasfilm. They're not fuck-ups. You know, they've mostly got this right.
Here's the reality that we're going to be dealing with, and I'm going to stand by this until proven otherwise. And bear in mind, if I'm proven otherwise, fine, I will accept that my prediction was wrong. That happens all the time. The vast majority of the Avengers characters are going to be on Disney Plus, and the next couple of major movies are going to be either X-Men or Fantastic Four movies with a few of the Avengers characters in the background.
Well, I have the list in front of me of what's... Like, again, some of these people just don't do their research before they do a podcast, but Black Widow's already in pre-production. It starts shooting... It starts shooting like in a month. It's
also a prequel.
It exists as a film, is the point.
True.
There are literally people going, I don't know where they're going next. They're shooting movies as we speak. So I don't do your homework.
Well, they're shooting a movie. They have pre-production on Shang-Chi, and they've announced a few Disney Plus series.
No, well, there's also a couple of that are in like early pre-production. The Eternals has a script. They're working. Then I think that's got a director. Doctor Strange has been greenlit. That's in pre-production. Black Panther greenlit. That's in pre-production. Shang-Chi, they're like fast tracking.
Guardians 3 is set to start shooting in 2020.
Yep. According to the list here, there's a script for Blade, and they want which if they do like Old Man Blade and they start doing some of the other characters surrounding the monster side of the like the horror monster side of the Marvel universe, I think that would be a cool thing.
They won't till they actually get all the Spider-Man properties back from Sony, because Blade has to fight Morbius Strip, whatever that stupid character's name is.
Morbius Strip.
Peyton Reed,
Morbius Strip, the living vampire.
Peyton Reed and the rest of the cast of the Ant-Man franchise is up for a third one. There's somebody on CBR jokingly called it Ant-Man, the Wasp, and Starcher, which works as a name as far as I'm concerned. There's expected to be a Captain Marvel sequel. Plus, they've got Fantastic Four back. Plus, they've got the X-Men. So that leads me to one last question, and then plugs, and then we're out. Some of this we covered last night on our recording of... what did we talk about last night?
What was that, source material?
Source material, Secret Invasion. You don't necessarily say like what event film, but Chris, you're Kevin Feige. They've dropped the ball in your lap. What do you do next? Where do you want the Marvel Cinematic Universe to go? Where do you expect it to go? What are your hopes and dreams? Tell me your innermost thoughts, sir.
Well, I think I've already kind of gone over this in the podcast we recorded last week.
That no one's heard yet.
Yeah, it won't air.
Right.
Won't air till Monday. So
this will be up like tonight, right?
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway,
So everything you're about to say is new to this audience.
okay. So time travel being involved in this movie, it's my hope that opens the door for a Kang the Conqueror storyline down the line. If they do a Phase 4, I would like to see them implement him. He's basically the greatest Avengers villain. Like Thanos was not really an Avengers villain. He fought the Avengers, but he was more of a Marvel universe as a whole like threat.
Yeah, big cosmic dude.
Yeah, whereas Kang is specifically an Avengers villain like Ultron. So that's kind of what I would like to see them build towards. I know, Mark, you are excited about the possibility of Galactus, Doctor Doom.
And they have to have the big stupid hat on him. He has to be wearing his Galactic Pope hat.
Sure.
That is the dumbest hat in the world.
Well, what else would they do? Make him into a giant CGI cloud?
Bite
That's
your
ridiculous.
tongue, woman.
Ridiculous.
Go to the corner. You go to the corner.
Someone had to say it.
But yeah, with them no longer having Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans to kind of center the Avengers universe around, it's as good a time as any to start bringing in Fantastic Four and X-Men characters. I know you think the X-Men need a break. I'm kind of excited to see an X-Men that's closer to what the comics have always been.
I think they should center
after the
hang on.
catastrophic-
Hang on. I think they should center the X-Men around a different character. I think now is the time for Gambit. Go ahead, Robert.
Mark, get that.
Now is the time. Wasn't that like years ago?
Shut your face, Starcher.
Yeah, it was on the schedule before Trump was president. Like in 2012, Mark was all, yeah, Gambit. That's going to be a thing. It's on the schedule.
It was kismet that we had to wait till now. Gambit for the future of the X-Men. Go ahead, Robert.
No, Gambit is not the future of the X-Men at all. No, look, I'm just going to say, the X-Men are going to wind up having to take a break after the catastrophic damage that Dark Phoenix is going to do to that property.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's a good 5 to 10 years before we see an X-Men movie.
Wow.
I think 5 would be the upper bound limit, but yeah, that movie is going to be so bad and so badly received that Marvel's going to go, you know what? We're just going to take a bit. We're going to make sure we get it right, and we're going to let this foul, foul taste get out of people's mouths.
Well, you figure they've got slates programmed till 2022, and that was before they had Fantastic Four and the X-Men. And I would tell you that I would assume Fantastic Four will take precedence over any of the X-Men stuff. So I don't think you're going to see any X-Men movies except for Gambit, which is the heart and soul of the X-Men, until after 2022.
How many
Gambit
years?
is not coming anywhere near a big screen for at least another 10 years. Look, the release date for Gambit will be on Mark's tombstone, and it will still be wrong.
Chris Armstrong, go ahead.
How many years were there between Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man: Homecoming?
Oh, dude, that was quick.
Like 3?
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
quick.
but that was extenuating circumstances. You had the Sony hack involved. They were working on Civil War was in pre-production. There was a lot of stuff that caused that all to happen.
Yeah, but my point is people were sick of Spider-Man. Okay. But it didn't stop Marvel from throwing him right back in there.
Nah, I see your point, but I feel like there were extenuating
X-Men
circumstances.
It's probably going to be a bigger disaster than Amazing Spider-Man 2 was. But
it probably will, but that like they're going to be measuring those impact craters for a while because man,
the people over at Warner Brothers are going to laugh at how bad Dark Phoenix does.
No kidding.
But yeah, Kang is what I'm looking forward to and hoping that the direction they go as far as the next phase.
All right, Chris loves his time travel even more than Jesse Starcher. What do you love, Alexis Hejna?
I am really hoping that we get Fantastic Four done right because we have suffered so much. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, is there any other character that has had four, count them, 4 movies made about them, and every single one of them was crap?
Oh, I like the first of the Fox Fantastic Four movies. The second one's hot garbage, but the first one wasn't bad.
It was pretty bad.
Hated it. I remember walking out. Someone had once told me Fantastic Four won't get off the ground because they can never have the budget for realistic effects. But this was obvious. That was said way before, like, Lord of the Rings and everything. So, take that in context. And I remember walking out and going, well, they had the budget for special effects. They clearly took all the budget for the story.
I think the first one gets unfairly maligned. The second one, though, is so bad, I think it drags the first one down.
I mean, look, the first one's bad. I don't think it's the worst thing ever made. It's not. It's actually probably, in all fairness, the second best Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, well, that's like saying that Tom Cruise is the second tallest midget.
He's only the first of all. Tom Cruise is only the third tallest midget. Jason Momoa is actually a surprisingly short human being.
So are you making the case that the Roger Corman Fantastic Four is the best Fantastic Four movie?
No, she's talking about she was talking about
the
last one that came out.
No, I actually am saying that the Roger Corman was the best one. If you
It is.
for 1 second, I've been at the Fan 4 stick. So help me God, I'm buying a play ticket, coming out there and kicking your ass.
You hit the line form to the left, baby.
Look, Mark had the temerity to loosely joke about that movie not being the worst piece of crap he'd ever seen on our podcast. I almost flew out to Florida to hit him. Because there were like 50 people that saw that movie. Mark and I were 2 of them. And boy howdy, is it just the worst thing. It's so bad.
I don't think we've ever agreed on how bad a movie was. As
Till
we
that
did
one.
on that one, yeah.
Except for Venom, we all agreed how bad that was.
Hey!
No, even then, Mark says, no, I can have fun with Venom. And I'm like, no, you're a moron. Look, small children have fun with jingly keys. That doesn't mean that jingling keys is of any actual value.
Well, we've hit two of these spots on the Damn You Hollywood bingo card. He calls me a moron, and we mentioned Venom. All right.
Now I just have to blame the Chinese for something.
Hey, I like Chinese. Fuck it, I want to get on this podcast already. Alexis Hejna, you're done, right? Fantastic Four, that was your thing? That's where we're going?
That's what I want to see. I'm hoping that we do not make a Fantastic Four origin movie. I don't think we need to see an origin movie. I'd like to see them just go ahead and start showing up fighting crime. I would not mind seeing Okay, I want Dr. Doom not to be the next big ultimate bad like Thanos, but I would like him to be like the next Loki.
Okay, I would buy that.
Repeatedly, but is not the ultimate big bad. How about that?
Jesse Starcher.
Oh, well, shortly after I watched the movie, I got into a conversation with our good buddy Al Sedano of Resurrections, the Adam Warlock and Thanos podcast. So we were trying to figure out what our next step would be. What would be the next big thing? And we finally settled on Secret Wars 2. So be ready, ladies and gentlemen.
Wait, you talking about the 80s Secret Wars 2, where Afro Man shows up on, and just interferes in everyone else's comic book?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not serious.
Oh, thank God.
No, what I did was I said Secret Wars, and Al asked me which one. So we have the original one, where Doctor Doom tries to become gather the powers of the Beyonder, which is a good series, or Secret Wars 2015. Now we've just entered into time travel and alternate realities. That concept has been shown here in this film. So why don't we start talking about the Thor cores Thor core, that Doctor Doom is a pretty big bad in that as well. The Infinity Gauntlet couldn't do shit to him, nor could the Phoenix Force. So if you want to get something that has all of our properties, the X-Men were in this, we got to build to it. And if there's any way for them to do it, which I don't know if there is. I mean, you got to top what you just had. Guys, we are talking about a film franchise that just hit 10 years. I was in my 30s when this stuff started. It's hard for me to comprehend that and to think to myself that, am I going to be 51 when I watch something that comes close to Endgame again? I don't know. So where they're going to begin and how they're going to top what we just experienced, Secret Wars 2015. There's my vote.
All right, Robert Winfree, take me home, Daddy-O.
I'm not entirely sure where they're going to go next. They have a few different
Where
options.
do you want them to go? Where do you want them to go? That's the question.
Oh, God. I don't know. I genuinely don't know what I would be most interested in personally after Thanos.
Are you joining the contingent of people who literally said, despite, in the face of all logic and what we know about capitalism, they should just close up shop and not do these anymore?
Oh no, I'm not. Oh, come on, man. You know me. I'm too much of a realist to believe that's on the table.
I wanted to find some of those people who did those reviews and throw things at them. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Okay. The way I see it, there are two major ways to address this going forward. One would be, again, a Doctor Doom doing a recurring Loki kind of villainy, which I think could work. Especially if you wanted to introduce some of the Earthbound characters and let him just kind of be around and be an obstacle for them across that on the Earth while you have, a few of the other cosmic characters out there doing cosmic stuff. You could probably do, again, so you're either going to do that, and that will build to the Eternals, which will build to Galactus and the Silver Surfer and all that nonsense. And frankly, if I were doing Galactus, he would not look like Galactus with the stupid hat. He would also not be just a cloud in space. I would genuinely kind of try to work out him as this giant, like, Cthulhu-like, extra-dimensional horror. But that's just me. You could also build very rapidly, in fact, towards an X-Men versus Avengers type scenario with the introduction of mutants. And I don't know how they're going to do it. Again, I've had my own kind of quasi-theories about this, but I'll have to really give it some thought in the wake of what we have with Endgame. But the Avengers taking on the X-Men as the Phoenix Force continues to disperse and corrupt other individuals, that's something they might be looking at as their next kind of, the next, maybe not the immediate next Avengers movie, but probably within the next 3, depending on whether or not they actually decide to do anything with the X-Men as a property.
All right, I think that wraps it up for this show. I want to thank Chris Armstrong of the Unspoken Decade, Alexis Hejna of Honeysuckle Rose Creations, Jesse Starcher of Parenting, Colton, Caleb, and
How not the parent.
and Robert Winfree from the darkest reaches of your mind. All right, guys. Quick, 10 words or less, plugs, same order. Chris, Alexis, Jesse, Rob, and then we're going to close out. Go.
You can find me on Twitter at BrodyMan34. Check out theunspokendecade.com. It's a 90s comic fan site. I've got a thing about the Infinity Gauntlet going up sometime this week, so check that out.
All right, thank you, Chris, for coming on. It was a pleasure having you. Alexis, hit me, Johnny.
First time you ever called me that.
I call everybody Johnny.
Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic, makers of upcycled and repurposed jewelry from old game pieces. We're taking a little time off from our convention circuit because we just got done with 2 shows on the same weekend. That was a little on the exhausting side. But guess what? We are going to be hosting a big sale this month for Mother's Day. I know that there are some with some geeky mothers out there, and we have got perfect presents for them. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and under duress Twitter. And our stores, you can find us on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon. Again, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
And Alexis and I will be together again on Thursday for the second half of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, otherwise known as Down with Misogyny.
You stole that joke from me.
I did, because I'm a hack. Speaking of hacks, Jesse Starcher, hit it, babe.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, right here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, I have a show. It's called Source Material. We are in the 200s when it comes to episodes, and we are basically a book club for comics. We talk about some graphic novels or just any storyline that we can get our hands on. Recently, just released, celebrating this Avengers Endgame, we let loose with our Avengers Forever coverage, where we looked at I think it was 12 issue series of the Avengers, some time-displaced Avengers. Mark found this book, and we talked about it. We had a good time. It was me, Mark, Chris, and Al Sedano. Look forward to our episode coming up soon, where me and Mark, if you thought we were pissed off at Captain Marvel now, just wait till you hear us talk about Civil War II.
Oh, good.
I've already got tons. Our guests for that one are going to be Chris Bailey, and a new guest by the name of Chris Sheehan. I got 2 Chris's on the damn podcast. I don't know what the hell.
Are you collecting Chris's like Infinity Stones? What the fuck?
I'm telling you, dude. Anyway, we've already had a bit of a discussion of how much they hate Captain Marvel, so I said, I wonder which person's going to say twat first. I'm going to lay money out. It'll probably be Mark. It might be Chris. It might be the other Chris. But either way.
Well, challenge accepted, by the way.
At this point, just you can gamble on Chris and have at least a 50% chance of being right.
Math!
That's true. But anyway, we'll have a good time discussing that Civil War II. I've not read it, so it should be a lot of fun. Ladies and gentlemen, check it out. We're in the archives. I'm done.
All right, Robert, we're in the end game now. Hit me.
I mean, you live across the country, and don't tempt me. All right. The podcast series, our Countdown to Endgames, wrapped up last Friday. Apparently, it's been well received. Most people just kind of pester Mark about this kind of stuff. Nobody bothers me about it, and I'm happy because I hate people. So thank you. Continue to harass Mark for positive and negative about the shows. I did have at least 2 people reach out and say they enjoyed them tremendously. So thank you to everyone for listening to that. It was a lot of fun. I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast on Sundays. The latest episode is up. We review Fight Night 150 and preview Fight Night 151. We lament the setback that probably means Jacare never actually even fights for the UFC middleweight title because bad timing and, well, he's a bit of a choke artist in certain situations. He could kill me with one hand, mind you, but we also again previewed the upcoming event that has Cowboy versus Iaquinta, where Mark doesn't know whether to root for Donald Cerrone or Raging Al because Mark has divided loyalties on the issue.
Cerrone.
Mark doesn't even deny it. I was waiting for him. I gave you a moment to defend yourself there, sir.
I got shit to do here.
All right. So Saturday we'll have coverage of that event in the MMA Zone of 411 Mania. Stop by, say hello, always appreciated. I believe we are off next Tuesday.
Oh, that's me, isn't it? Yeah. Next Tuesday.
I'm pretty sure there's nothing else. There's nothing coming out next week.
Next Tuesday, myself, Jesse Starcher, possibly Andrew Graham, but probably not. We'll be discussing Cobra Kai Season 2. The week after that is Detective Pikachu.
What?
Yep. And the
No. Seriously, Jesse's little sound thing came back again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you would. We have a show in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
okay,
the 14th.
I'll be here.
Detective Pikachu, whether you see it or not.
I really wish I knew what was up with my internet connection.
Wow, he is leaning into that shit.
The week after that is John Wick. The week after that is Aladdin. All right. Tomorrow on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, myself and Jesse will discuss the Orville Season 2. As I mentioned before, myself and Alexis Hejna. Thursday, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Part 2. We take a break on Friday, but Saturday, I'm either at a Kentucky Derby party or I'm watching the Canelo-Daniel Jacobs fight with Pat and doing commentary. Next week, we've got Secret Invasion, Cobra Kai, Battle Beast, No More Hollywood Endings, and Alexis Hejna will be back again for another TV party, this time She-Ra Season 2. It's all right here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. Thank you. If you've hung out this long, you've made it through the entire 2.5 hours. thank you for listening to our review of the show. We hope you liked our roundtable format. We'll probably do it again when Rise of Skywalker comes out. As for the doubting Thomases that think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is now going to be in shambles, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Hang on.
Shang-Chi will be fine.
They have plans. That doesn't guarantee things will be fine. I'm clear about that. They have plans.
Trust me.
Sorry, I think Eddie wanted to get the final word in on the show.
As Eddie just said, everything's going to be okay. Thank you
He's
for
listening. He's a corgi. Of course that's what he thinks.
Shut your face. Thank you for listening. Good night. Be well, be safe, and behave.
Feel the rush and roar of Tigress. New at Busch Gardens. Ride Florida's tallest launch coaster with an inverted zero-G roll, 150 feet in the air. Take on the new Tigress, now open at Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. Florida's thrill ride leader. Get a Busch Gardens Silver Pass for only $10.99 a month plus down payment. Monthly payment plan requires a down payment of $50 and 12 monthly payments. Florida residency required.
Hi, Fashion Hotline. Hi, we're hosting a spring picnic and the weather looks great, but we don't. We need stylish new jeans now.
Get to Old Navy.
Old Navy?
Yep, right now. Jeans, shirts, and tees are up to 50% off.
Up to 50% off? Our fashion forecast is looking up.
Sure is. Refresh your denim with new distressed styles and lighter washes. There's 106 washes to choose from. Jeans start at just $15 for adults, $10 for kids.
But the picnic's this weekend. We need them now.
Just buy online and pick up in store for free today.
Free pickup in time for our picnic?
Get up to 50% off jeans, shorts, and tees now at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Valid 4/27/55. Select styles only.